America is $34 trillion in debt. Its annual interest payment now exceeds its entire defense budget. It has fought wars in the Middle East for 23 consecutive years and won none of them. The dollar, the foundation of American global power, is losing its grip on the world faster than at any point since World War II. And at the center of every one of these crises, the debt, the wars, the dying dollar, is one country: Iran. This is the story of how a war with Iran would not just be a military catastrophe, it would be the economic event that ends American dominance forever. To understand how America got here, you must go back to the moment it became the most powerful economic empire in human history. July 1944. World War II is not yet over, but 44 nations gather at a hotel in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. They are there to answer one question. When this war ends, what will the world's financial system look like? America held all the cards. It had emerged from the war as the only major economy left standing. Europe was destroyed. Asia was in ruins. America had 80% of the world's gold reserves and half its industrial capacity. The deal struck at Bretton Woods was simple. Every currency in the world would be pegged to the dollar, and the dollar would be pegged to gold. America became the world's banker. Every nation needed dollars. Every nation held dollars. American economic power was absolute. For 25 years it worked. American prosperity was real. The middle class grew. The economy boomed. But America had a problem it was hiding from the world. It was printing more dollars than it had gold to back them. The promise at the heart of Bretton Woods was becoming a lie. By the late 1960s, the Vietnam War was costing America billions it did not have. Inflation was rising. Other nations began to notice. France's President Charles de Gaulle sent a warship to New York Harbor loaded with dollars, demanding gold in exchange, as was his right under Bretton Woods. If other nations followed France, America's gold would be gone within months. On August 15, 1971, President Nixon went on television and made an announcement that changed the global financial system forever. He ended the convertibility of dollars to gold. The promise was broken. The dollar was now backed by nothing but American power. The world's reserve currency was now just paper, and America needed a new reason for the world to keep using it. Henry Kissinger had a plan. 1973. The Arab oil embargo has just sent oil prices through the roof. America is in an energy crisis. Kissinger flies secretly to Riyadh. His mission will make a deal with Saudi Arabia that would save the dollar and reshape the entire world. The deal had two parts. America would guarantee Saudi Arabia's security, protecting the royal family from any threat, internal or external. In return, Saudi Arabia would do two things that would change the global financial system forever. First, Saudi Arabia would price all its oil exclusively in US dollars. No other currency would be accepted. Second, Saudi Arabia would invest its surplus oil profits, the petrodollars, back into American treasury bonds. Within 2 years, every OPEC nation had agreed to price oil in dollars. The petrodollar system was born. The genius of this system was its self-reinforcing nature. Every country in the world needed oil. Every country, therefore, needed dollars. To buy oil, you needed dollars. To get dollars, you needed to trade with America or borrow from American banks. America could now print dollars without gold to back them, and the world had to absorb them because they needed dollars for oil. It was the most brilliant financial arrangement in history. America was taxing the entire world, invisibly, through dollar inflation. Every time America printed money and caused inflation, every country holding dollars lost wealth. They were paying for American spending without knowing it. This system funded American military dominance, consumer prosperity, and deficit spending for 50 years. But the system had a fatal vulnerability, and it only worked as long as oil was priced in dollars. Any leader who tried to break that link and to price their oil in euros, gold, or any other currency was threatening the entire foundation of American power. 2 leaders tried. Both are dead. And the story of how they died tells you everything about why Iran is the most dangerous country in the world to Washington right now. September 12th, 2001. the day after the worst attack on American soil since Pearl Harbor. America was about to make a series of decisions that would cost it more than any war in its history. The invasion of Afghanistan in 2001, the invasion of Iraq in 2003, 2 wars, 2 countries, 23 years. The total cost of America's post-9/11 wars, according to Brown University's Costs of War project, is $8 trillion. $8 trillion spent in countries that America ultimately left, in worse condition than it found them. For $8 trillion, America could have rebuilt every road, bridge, and school in the country twice over. It could have fully funded Medicare for all for 20 years. It could have eliminated student debt 4 times over. Instead, that money became debt that is now strangling the American economy. But here is what nobody tells you about those wars. Somebody did profit. Enormously. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, Halliburton. The defense industry's stock prices rose an average of 1,000% during the War on Terror. Dick Cheney was CEO of Halliburton before becoming vice president. Halliburton received $39 billion in Iraq war contracts. The wars were not failures for everyone. For the military-industrial complex, they were the most profitable 2 decades in history. Meanwhile, 30,000 American veterans have died by suicide since 9/11, more than died in combat. The wars added $8 trillion to the national debt. The interest on that debt alone now costs America over $1 trillion a year. $1 trillion a year, just in interest. More than America spends on education, infrastructure, and healthcare combined. And yet, Washington is considering doing it again. This time with Iran. A country 3 times the size of Iraq with a military that makes Saddam's look like a school project. To understand why Iran is in America's crosshairs, beyond the nuclear program, beyond the proxies, beyond the ideology, follow the money. Iran sits on the world's 4th largest oil reserves and the world's 2nd largest natural gas reserves. For decades, Iran priced and sold what little oil it could export, in US dollars, like everyone else, because it had no choice. Then the sanctions came. America cut Iran off from the dollar system. Iran was forced to find alternatives. And in finding alternatives, Iran accidentally discovered that alternatives were possible, and started building them. Iran began trading oil with China in yuan, with Russia in rubles, with India in rupees, with Turkey in liras. Every barrel of Iranian oil sold outside the dollar system is a crack in the petrodollar's foundation. In 2018, Iran officially announced it would no longer use the dollar in any foreign trade reporting. Washington's reaction was immediate. The most severe sanctions in history, designed to destroy Iran's economy entirely. But the sanctions had an unintended consequence. They accelerated Iran's development of dollar alternative systems. Iran and Russia jointly developed Instex, a financial messaging system to replace SWIFT, the American-controlled global banking network. Iran joined the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, China and Russia's geopolitical counterweight to American dominance. Iran also applied for and received full membership in BRICS, the coalition of nations building a post-dollar world. Think about what this means. America sanctioned Iran to punish it, and the punishment pushed Iran directly into the arms of every American rival simultaneously. Iran is no longer just a military threat to American interests. It is the linchpin of the economic coalition trying to dismantle the petrodollar. This is why a war with Iran is not really about nuclear weapons. It is about who controls the financial architecture of the 21st century. While America has been fighting wars and managing Iran, something has been quietly growing at home that threatens to make all of it irrelevant. America's national debt crossed $34 trillion in 2024, a number so large it has lost all meaning. To put it in perspective, America borrows approximately $6 billion every single day just to keep the government running. The interest payment on this debt in 2024 exceeded $1 trillion for the first time in American history. That means America now spends more on interest payments to its creditors than it spends on its entire military, more than it spends on Medicare, more than it spends on education, more than it spends on infrastructure. Every dollar spent on interest is a dollar not spent on the American people. And the number grows every year. Who does America owe this money to? Largely itself, but $7 trillion is owed to foreign governments. China holds approximately $800 billion in American Treasury bonds. It is one of America's largest creditors. This creates a situation of mutual financial hostage-taking. America needs China to keep buying its debt. China needs America to keep buying its goods. But that balance is shifting. China has been quietly selling American Treasury bonds and buying gold instead. In 2023, China sold a record amount of U.S. Treasuries, the largest single-year reduction in its dollar holdings in history. When creditors stop buying your debt, interest rates rise. When interest rates rise, the debt becomes more expensive. When the debt becomes more expensive, the spiral begins. The Congressional Budget Office projects that by 2034, interest on the debt will consume 35 cents of every tax dollar America collects. At some point, and economists disagree only on when, not if, this debt becomes mathematically unserviceable. And a war with Iran, with oil at $200 a barrel, global markets in freefall and defense spending exploding, could be the event that tips America from managed decline into something far worse. While America has been distracted by wars, debt, and political chaos, a quiet revolution in global finance has been underway. BRICS, originally Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Today, a coalition that represents over 40% of the world's population. In 2024, BRICS expanded to include Iran, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, and Ethiopia, the most significant geopolitical expansion since NATO. Saudi Arabia joining BRICS is the single most important geopolitical event of the decade, and most Americans have no idea it happened. Saudi Arabia, the country whose 1973 deal with Kissinger created the petrodollar, is now building an alternative to it. In 2023, Saudi Arabia accepted Chinese yuan as payment for oil for the first time in 50 years. The petrodollar, the system that has sustained American economic dominance since 1973, just took its first real wound. BRICS nations are also accumulating gold at the fastest rate in recorded history, deliberately reducing their dollar exposure. Russia, cut off from the dollar system after Ukraine sanctions, has built a fully functional alternative payment system with China and Iran. The sanctions designed to punish Russia accelerated Russia's financial independence from the dollar. The same pattern as Iran. India, officially a Western partner, buys Russian oil in rupees and has refused to join dollar-based sanctions on Moscow. The dollar's share of global central bank reserves has fallen from 73% in 2001 to under 58% today. That decline is accelerating, not because the dollar is collapsing, but because alternatives are finally being built. A world where oil is no longer priced exclusively in dollars is a world where America loses the ability to print money and have others absorb the cost. It means America would have to live within its means, something it has not done since 1971. And Iran, sitting at the center of this coalition, controlling the Strait of Hormuz, holding the world's second-largest gas reserves, is the key piece on this board. For 45 years, America has tried to destroy Iran's economy. It has not succeeded, and the failure has made Iran stronger. When the most severe sanctions in history were reimposed in 2018, conventional wisdom said Iran's economy would collapse within a year. It did not collapse. Iran's economy contracted, then adapted, then found new routes. Iran built what economists now call a sanctions-resistant economy, deliberately decoupled from the Western financial system. It developed domestic alternatives to every Western product and system it was cut off from. Iran built its own banking messaging system, its own payment networks, its own satellite navigation, its own drone technology. The drone technology in particular proved decisive. Iran's drones are now among the most effective asymmetric weapons on the planet. Russia used Iranian drones extensively in Ukraine, paying for them with weapons technology and oil revenue-sharing arrangements. Iran now exports weapons to Russia, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and Iraqi militias simultaneously, each sale generating revenue outside the dollar system. Iran's ghost tanker fleet, ships that disable their tracking signals, moves Iranian oil to China and others continuously. Estimates suggest Iran exports between 1.5 and 2 million barrels of oil per day, despite sanctions, nearly as much as before they were imposed. The revenue from this shadow economy funds the Revolutionary Guard, the proxy network, and the nuclear program simultaneously. The sanctions meant to starve Iran's military machine have instead taught it to operate entirely outside the rules-based international order. Iran has effectively been stress-tested by the world's most powerful economy for 45 years, and has not broken. When analysts wargame a U.S.-Iran conflict, one question comes up every time. If sanctions have not broken Iran in 45 years, what exactly is the military option supposed to achieve? The answer to that question brings us to the one geographic fact that terrifies every economist and military planner on the planet: the Strait of Hormuz, a waterway 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. Every single day, approximately 21 million barrels of oil pass through this strait. That is 21% of the world's entire oil supply. Japan gets 90% of its oil through the Strait of Hormuz. South Korea 70%. India 65%. Europe 20%. Iran controls the northern shore of the strait. It has spent 45 years preparing to close it. Iran has thousands of anti-ship missiles, naval mines, submarines, and fast attack boats pre-positioned to close the strait within hours. Military analysts estimate Iran could close the Strait of Hormuz for weeks, possibly months, before American forces could reopen it. Within 72 hours of the strait closing, oil prices would reach $200 a barrel, possibly $300. At $200 a barrel, every major economy on Earth enters recession simultaneously, including America's. America's stock market, already leveraged to historic levels, would face a crash that would make 2008 look modest. America currently imports approximately 400,000 barrels of Iranian region oil per day. A war would eliminate that instantly. The cost of a war with Iran has been estimated by various analysts at between $3 and $7 trillion, on top of America's existing $34 trillion debt. Iran's military is not Iraq's military. It has ballistic missiles that can reach every American base in the Middle East. It has hypersonic missiles, underground facilities too deep for conventional bunker busters, and a population 3 times the size of Iraq's willing to fight. Every wargame simulation run by the U.S. military, every single one, ends with Iran successfully closing the strait and triggering a global economic crisis. The warhawks in Washington know this. The Treasury knows this. The Federal Reserve knows this. And yet the pressure for confrontation with Iran has never been greater, which means either they have a plan nobody is talking about, or they are gambling with the global economy. We are living through the most consequential economic and geopolitical transition since the end of World War II. The petrodollar system that has sustained American power for 50 years is fracturing in real time. Saudi Arabia is selling oil in yuan, Russia is trading in rubles, Iran is trading in everything except dollars. India is watching and calculating. The dollar's reserve currency status, the source of America's ability to borrow infinitely and spend beyond its means, is being slowly dismantled. This does not mean the dollar collapses tomorrow. Reserve currency transitions take decades, but they are irreversible once they begin. America's political system has shown no ability to address its debt crisis, its infrastructure deficit, or its declining industrial base. Both political parties have increased the debt every time they have been in power. Neither has a credible plan to address it. The military-industrial complex that profits from Middle Eastern wars has more influence over American foreign policy than the American people. And Iran, the country at the center of all of this, is more strategically embedded in the anti-dollar coalition than it has ever been. A war with Iran today would not be like the wars of 2001 or 2003. It would be a war against a country backed by Russia and China, nuclear powers both. China has made clear that Iran's security is linked to its belt and road investment and its oil supply. An attack on Iran is an attack on Chinese interests. Russia has supplied Iran with advanced air defense systems. Iranian airspace is no longer the easy target it was in 2003. The America that fought Iraq in 2003 had an AAA credit rating, $6 trillion less debt, and a dollar that was unquestioned. That America no longer exists. The America that would fight Iran today is a country already carrying a debt it cannot mathematically repay. History shows us that empires do not usually fall from external attack. They fall when they can no longer afford themselves. America is not falling, not yet. But the decisions made in the next 5 years on Iran, on debt, on the dollar, will determine whether this is a managed decline or something far harder to control. The Iran question is not really about Iran. It is about what kind of world comes after American dominance, and whether that transition happens peacefully or catastrophically. The numbers in this video are real. The debts are real. The fractures are real. The question is whether the people making these decisions understand what is at stake. Wealth history, where the past explains everything you see today.